If your teenage years were awkward in any way, there's at least one scene or moment from a John Hughes flick that will reach you emotionally. He's the quintessential teen flick director, and he deserves credit for making films that strike a nice balance between emotional teen angst and campy 80s entertainment. I'm partial to films that can blend different emotions without being sloppy about it, and it's just a nice feeling to watch a silly, teeny bop film and not feel guilty about it because it's actually done well. I'd like to focus on two of his films, Some Kind of Wonderful and Pretty in Pink, how these films handled the classic love triangle concept, and of course, which did it better. The main plot of Some Kind of Wonderful is about this kid Keith Nelson, played by Eric Stoltz. You know, he's a young mechanic, he's trying to make some money for college, he lives in the poor side of town. It's one of those John Hughes things where students are separated very dramatically by how much money their families make. So you have him and his tomboy friend Watts, done by Mary Stuart Masterson, and kind of out of nowhere, he develops his crush on Amanda Jones, played by Leah Thompson. She is the girl. You know, she runs with the it crowd. Even though she lives in the poor section of town, she's the hot, rich chick that all the guys want to bang. Don't really see it personally, but that's me. Anyway, the whole movie is basically him trying to woo her from her asshole boyfriend, who, by the way, this guy, you just look at him and it's like 80s asshole. It's just perfect. So even though Keith is a sympathetic, optimistic kind of guy, it's almost like he knows it's not going to work.
Maybe she doesn't like you as much as you think.
Maybe.
He's just kind of throwing himself into it without any method or foresight. It never feels like he thinks it will work, but rather it's a thing he's going to do because he likes her, so he just does it.
You know, don't leave Amanda Jones.
You're 20 minutes into the movie, and the moment he starts talking about it, you kind of know it's not going to happen. And I think it's because he doesn't approach it in a romantic way. He's very upfront and casual about it. So for a movie that's a romance, it's actually not that romantic. There's no grand sweeping gestures, maybe a little bit at the end, but the lack of it is a good example of the interesting sense of like cutthroat honesty that this movie contains. If Pretty in Pink is about two people trying to get together, and you know, will they or won't they, even though we all know they fucking will, Some Kind of Wonderful is like a post-apocalyptic romance, where the characters believe that things like love conquers all, and love at first sight, and you know, all those tropes are bullshit, and they've all accepted it. A great deal of this attitude comes from the mouth of Watts.
Don't go mistaking paradise for a pair of long legs.
Quote after quote, she's talking about how that rich crowd, they're not worth your time, they spit on everyone, and there's no purpose in going for someone you can't get.
It's better to swallow pride than blood.
That's a sentiment you don't see in a lot of movies, especially from a character you like in a romance, and it really helps the movie stand out among its contemporaries.
Once a fool, always a fool, right?
So you have a story carrying the theme, fine, but it's goddamn useless without likable characters and the actors portraying them. Luckily, both here are quite good. Stoltz is affable and casual, and it works perfectly for the character, and he reminds me a lot of Tobey Maguire. Pleasantville Tobey Maguire, not fucking emo jazz dancer Tobey Maguire. The Amanda Jones character goes well beyond being Princess Peach. She's likable, she's honest, and can verbally spar with Keith, but she's also naive, indecisive, and even a tad selfish, all of which Leah Thompson pulls off very well. But really, this show is about Mary Stuart Masterson. You see, the Watts character has an unrequited crush on Keith, yet she never flat out says it. Just based on her performance alone, you can get a sense of how long these feelings have been going on, and understand the kind of euphoria and despair she's going through.
And you're driving me crazy. And I'd rather not see you and have you think good things about me than have you see me and hate me.
Probably the shining moment is the scene where they first kiss. The setup for it is that Watts is trying to teach Keith how to do it in order to prepare him for the illustrious Amanda Jones. The implication, of course, by Watts is that Amanda has been around the block, as you could say, which is perfectly in line with Watts' jealous nature.
This babe has plenty of battle scars.
I think I can handle it.
Great, well...
What's so great about this scene is how awkward it is. You know, they shift their weight, they don't look at each other's eyes, she's telling him to grow up, and you can analyze it in different ways. At face value, you can view the scene as simple wish fulfillment for the audience, like, ooh, we get to see them kiss. Or you can see from his perspective, being like, oh shit, well, I guess I should know how to do this, and you can see his feelings of inadequacy. And thirdly, you can see it from Watt's point of view, as she succumbs to having to basically trick Keith into a kiss. And it's fair to argue that she's not actually trying to help him at all, but is reaching out for any chance of intimacy. The fact that this scene is equal parts sweet and heartbreaking is one of the main strengths of this movie.
Lesson's over, you're cool.
So on to Pretty in Pink. The story is essentially the same, except for the genders reversed. So this time you have the poor girl trying to get the rich guy, and she has a friend who has a massive crush on her. But it doesn't really do anything beyond that. Okay, so you got Molly Ringwald, who's always fine in this kind of role, and I like how with the deceased mother, she has to fulfill duties both as a daughter and a caregiver to the father.
Here, I want you to drink this.
But when she's with her friends or love interest,
What do you want to do?
I found her to be completely flat.
Anything.
Why don't you just drop me off the tracks?
You know when you say something clever to a girl, but it was really more offensive than clever, and she makes a noise like, that's Andy. That's pretty much her. And you know what, I'm just gonna say it. Is it just me, or does her crush come off as really creepy? The actor is Andrew McCarthy, playing the character of Blaine McDonnell. And I'm not gonna say he's a bad actor. I mean, he doesn't do anything wrong. There's just something about it that's really off-putting. Like, every time you see him, especially like through a window or across a short distance, he just had this look like, yeah. So, poor girl, rich guy, unrequited friend, you have the classic dynamic going. But that's it. You got the setup, but nothing filling it. Nothing substantial is going on.
I just think it's stupid, it's pointless.
It keeps establishing the reasons for why they apparently can't be together, yet without good dialogue or chemistry, the film doesn't give enough reasons for why we should even root for them. It's boring. You have two rather flat characters who have crushes on each other, and then you have Ducky just blathering away in the background, and you know what? I'm just gonna fucking get into the second main problem other than the story that separates these two movies in terms of quality. Here it is, right here. Ducky is the worst. He can't dance, his jokes suck, I don't even know what the hell he's wearing, and it's so obvious that he's written to be the scene-chewing character in comedies. The goofy friend, the goofy gay friend. There's a bunch of those, and I'm fine with that. But when it's so transparent that that's who they are and that's their contribution to the movie, it starts to wear pretty goddamn thin when they have nothing else to offer.
Would you mind filling me in here? I'm a little confused.
Now, there is one interesting thing that happens with his character. That's when he does a rather dickish move about 2/3 the way through the movie.
Andy! Yo! You've been replaced!
It ranks somewhere around 7 on the douchebag scale, but you understand why he did it. Being that supportive friend with those feelings, especially for a long time, it's gonna get frustrating after a while, Let the guy get his dick wet. I sympathize. But other than that, I don't see how he belongs in the film in any regard. And to top it off, he has one of the most anticlimactic character arcs I've ever seen in a movie. I mean, it was so lazy, it was just... Oh, man. They basically just paratrooped a love interest for him at the end. I'm worried that I'm giving off the impression that Some Kind of Wonderful is flawless, or even great. And it's not. It has a lot of flaws. The date scene has moments of interest, but it's way too cynical for its own good. And the movie is goofy in the wrong places. And worst of all, it didn't quite earn its happy ending. At least the dialogue at the end is well done in its own snappy way.
You knew you were gonna get
No,
these.
I didn't. I hoped. I didn't know.
And these fuck-ups were mainly the byproduct of a film trying to do something different and not always connecting. Pretty in Pink looks good, sounds good, and it's consistent from point A to point B. But so what? So is 2 + 2. Just because you got the right answer efficiently doesn't make it worthwhile. You took 0 chances. It was serviceable, not momentic. Saying that, I would still like to see a fan edit of these two movies. I mean, it could have been better than
What?
16 Candles.
Listen, you guys enjoy yourselves, and we'll see you later, maybe.